I find it kind of funny. I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying. I'm dying? Oh, not again. That would make 4, no, 5 times today. Oh, well. Well, before I go, I might as well introduce the Busy Dads Do Sci-Fi podcast. That's right, Kevin and George coming at you. And this time they're talking about Bonnie Fargo. It's a movie apparently about some sort of... Oh, okay. All right, I'm getting to wrap it up off camera from my intern. All right, Tony, don't worry about it. The best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you. I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very...
Busy daddies, busy daddies, busy daddies do sci-fi. Busy daddies, busy daddies, busy daddies do sci-fi. Busy daddies, busy daddies, busy daddies do sci-fi. Busy daddies, busy daddies, busy daddies do sci-fi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, what?
Yaha.
Yaha.
All right.
Yep.
Nothing like a solid 80s flick, huh?
Correct.
It's a weird decision sometimes to take just to go, you know what? I want this to take place in the 80s. Like what does that add to a movie that is not like ostensibly about the 80s?
Didn't Vic say we can't talk about Stranger Things again anymore?
All right, well, let's use Stranger Things. He didn't say that. We have an entire season of Stranger Things still to cover. And
what?
He said we're not allowed to talk about strange things that he does in his backyard.
Oh.
Because we walked past, remember, it was a little late and he was digging that hole. And we started telling people, he's like, no, you can't talk about the strange things I do.
I think he was burying the placenta of one of his concubines. What?
That's probably exactly why he doesn't want us.
No, wait. That's what we weren't supposed to say. We weren't even supposed to talk about the concubines.
You went from 0 to 60 on that one. That's not even how rumors start. That's how misinformation spreads.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet that one of our listeners is now tweeting that producer Vic is burying placentas in his backyard. But in fairness, he believes that trees of life will spring from them.
That's what I'm saying.
Which I do believe that there is science to back that up, like 17th century science, but science nonetheless, Kevin. Oh, yeah. I mean,
like, hold on. We have another season of Stranger Things to talk about?
I mean, I think we never talked about the third one. And then there is a fourth one that is coming out when the world...
Would you say it's forthcoming?
Forthcoming. Yeah. Fourth is coming.
Third season happened.
Third season.
Fourth one is forthcoming.
Third season done and flushed. I mean, watch. Third season. I actually haven't watched the third season.
It hurts my brain. Stranger Things reminds me of the Star Warsification of the world. The merch is just like, oh wow, look, it's a lady with an Ursula tattoo on her calf and a Stranger Things shirt on.
Stranger Things is one of those things, those Stranger Things, that whether we like it or not, has sort of transcended itself. You know what I mean? How every once in a while, a piece of entertainment comes along that becomes greater than the sum of its parts and creates a little bit of like a frenzy around it. So we get like Stranger Things experiences and all these people who buy into because now, like, what is the name of the I want to say Barb, but I might be wrong. The woman who dies in the first season of Stranger Things, they're her friend who's got glasses. She dies in the
Yes.
pool. Like her entire existence unto itself has like fan clubs and fan fiction and people who are like, oh, I get it, living that Barb life. So I mean, one of the things I really, really like about fandom is that we can do those things, and there's more appropriate examples sometimes, like like with like Jack Skellington, how he's kind of been co-opted by the kids who grew up with him, and there's a large contingent of kids who sort of think like Jack Skellington. That's a line of thought and philosophy and emotion that I can get behind, trying to make the best out of a bad situation and trying to see something that you don't belong in and be comfortable with who you are, like stuff like that. I love when things like that happen.
Well, I mean, since God is dead, we
New York
need
Times
we
reported.
need other things.
It's 2 scoops tonight, Kevin.
2 scoops?
2 scoops, not raisins. First is Vic is burying placentas in his backyard, and the second is that God is dead. You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
There is a Kids in the Hall sketch in which it looks like a 1950s newsreel in which they're reporting on the death of God, and they say, and the one thing that shocked most people is that how small God was, and they show a coffin that's like 18 inches tall.
Wow.
But what we are talking about tonight, I think is one of those forms of fiction that has sort of sprung into, I mean, certainly cult status, but almost more than that, like it has created a bit of like a fanaticism where you either have seen it or you kind of need an explanation about it. Like, and even if you've seen it, you probably need an explanation about it.
It's clear, folks, and we'll explain the shit out of it tonight.
That's all we're going to do for the next 4.5 hours.
Another great podcast.
Woo, man, you got your coffee?
Totally.
Oh, good. Good. So, oh, what happened?
I don't know, George.
The lights just went out.
Did they? You mean in your head?
I mean, that happened a long time ago.
Lights out.
Oh boy. Lights out. Opposite of light.
We've been here before.
To what?
To the opposite of light.
You mean as far as segues go, or you mean physically?
Absolutely.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, I did. Very recently too.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. Now what are you gonna do?
There's no other fucking.
Yeah.
What other way to come about this is there? All right, let's think here.
I'll give you a hint. Blue Bloods.
People from Connecticut.
People come up to me and say, "Yo, dude, Blue Bloods." In grocery stores.
People come up to you in grocery stores and say Blue Bloods.
Yeah, and then like
Dang.
someone else will even stop and be like, "Oh yeah, Blue Bloods," because they know what the first guy who said it means.
What they're talking about. They know what you're.
Yeah.
This is a whole area of your life that I don't understand, Kevin.
Really?
Are you?
Do you know the show Blue Bloods? Because I didn't till people started saying Blue Bloods to me.
Never heard of this.
No.
Why don't
You
you,
don't know
why
the
don't you handle
ABC
the
show
segue
Blue
today,
Bloods.
since you seem so intent on it?
I can't pull a segue out of this.
I know. This is
Vic said could you cue George up a little bit? Just tee him up is what he said.
you guys you've been talking about me behind my back?
It was from the last conversation he said about segue supremacy, and
After the placenta thing?
that's just a guess.
Okay. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. All right. Let's just think of some famous dons. How about that? We could maybe just jump on that bandwagon. There's a comedian. You saw Do you
Don
recall
Lemon?
a certain band called New Kids on the Block?
Yeah. Well, is Don Lemon someone?
Don Lemon is yeah, that's Liz Lemon's brother from 30 Rock. No, Don Lemon is a reporter for CNN.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
He's probably busy tonight.
I would imagine he's busy. We have a very this week's busy in general for those guys, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so do you remember NKOTB, New Kids on the Block? They had a cartoon series. They had, a very popular Joey McIntyre, Donnie Wahlberg.
Blue
out of
Bloods.
I don't know what Blue Bloods is. I know him as
You
the
know
guy
what?
who shot Bruce Willis in the beginning of Sixth Sense.
You're going to leave this podcast still not knowing what Blue Bloods is.
Unless I make a commitment to do something about it. Just
You
like
can't-
Donnie.
You can't Google. You can't Google this,
No,
man.
no.
You're locked in the prison of your mind.
No. I'm not going to Google. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to commit myself to some serious action as far as finding out what this Blue Bloods is, because that's what we do. We make a decision, we commit ourselves to an action, and in the end, we save the world. Even if that world is just that knowledge that's attained right there, we save the world. Sort of like the name of the movie we're going to be talking about tonight, which Donnie Wahlberg was a new kid on the block.
He was.
You know who was not a new kid on the block?
No.
Donnie Darko.
Oh.
Wasn't. Could have been. Same time period. Little early. 2 years, 3 years. Didn't quite make it to the to the inception of New Kids. But
Yeah.
good guy, that Donnie Darko.
Yep.
You heard the legend,
Donnie,
right?
Sir Donald Darko.
Sir Donald Rutherford Darko of Sussex. I think the name of it. Where do you suppose? What state you suppose that town was in? California, right? Because they mentioned.
Well, they had to fly to LA, but it
Fly to
felt
LA.
like in LA. I think it was a lot of LA going on there.
I'm going to give you an impossible task.
Okay.
Just
I've already given you one.
Build this world there.
Build this world. Build this world. We built this city on
1980s rock and roll.
On yous and me's. Well, we're in 1988 in this movie, and we've got a high schooler who's got an older high schooler sister and a younger, middle school sister, and it's pretty average the whole time. I feel that this this world is regular. It's kind of got like a 1988 high school movie feel.
It never stops being regular too. Like even surrounded by fantastical things, there's still it's family dinner time, and it's school assembly time. It's that teacher I can't stand time. Like the mundanity continues throughout the whole.
Yes. And so, but what we do find is this kid has got some emotional problems, perhaps, is on some medicine he doesn't really want to take. And we're getting this set up that we're watching the underdog and the wild child, someone who's already burned down an abandoned house, been to jail for it. And he's smart as a whip too. Really doesn't have time for what the rest of the people are up to, and can kind of see right through it.
Which is punctuated pretty brilliantly in like his simple stuff, like his interactions with his friends, and the conversations that they want to have that he quickly can shoot down is just like, why are you wasting your time with this, man? Why you? Just great stuff. Donnie Darko is already kind of just a cool character.
He is. I kind of thought when we were going to do this one that I remember there was a bias. I remember saying I liked this movie when I saw it. I probably saw it shortly after it came out in 2001. But I remember saying to myself, like, am I going to be watching a thing? Like, is this thing a thing? And we've already alluded to it a little bit, but I was like, why did we decide to do a thing movie?
Yeah.
But I was
I would
totally
punch in
psyched.
and just say I saw this movie several times, liked it, and at some point along the line decided that it sucked. I at some point along the last couple of years, absent of it, sort of removed myself and went, you know what? I think that movie sucked, but had a riveting ending, and that's why it gets so many passes. Um, and I know that might sound paradoxical in and of itself,
Right.
but having just rewatched it in preparation for this podcast, I sort of rediscovered all the stuff,
Well,
know?
and that's, I mean, this movie hit me on a Ferris Bueller, Breakfast Club, maybe Valley Girl, without feeling like Stranger Things, but it had the tropes, I think, but then it transcended them. So of course there's going to be teachers we look up to and teachers that are annoying and probably should be messed with, inept principals, uh, extremely tough losers.
That are just so cartoonishly like bad,
But
like
like,
Switchblade in the face.
but
And
which like works then. Like I was thinking
yeah,
about it. There's a bad guy, one of the tough guys, he's doing cocaine in the hallway, like with his buddy, and then he carries a knife, and those times are long gone as far as I know. But like people carried knives.
yeah,
Heads,
it
we called
worked.
them heads. I was one of them. They had knives. Some of
Eh,
the other dudes, the more ass kickers. I was on the fringe and into the lifestyle, but that was a thing, right? People acted that way.
We're quickly introduced into the darker side of Donnie's world, which is maybe at first seems like a byproduct of these emotional stressors he has. He sleepwalks. When he sleepwalks, he goes on little journeys of sort of destruction, and almost immediately we get introduced to one of his hallucinations, which is this demonic looking 6 foot tall bunny rabbit named Frank.
Yeah.
And Frank informs him that the world is going to end in 28 days. That's the beginning.
Yeah.
Like,
Wakes him up from his bed so that while he's out of his bed sleepwalking, a plane engine falls on his room. And that's in the first act. And it gets cool from there because there's not a plane that's lost an engine, folks. But
right.
sure as shit, it's fallen on his house, right on his bedroom.
And this is where we kind of get tossed back into just Donnie's normal teenage life, while at the same time having these like deeper science fiction aspects going on, where we already know that there is probably more going on here than just like sick kid, but it's still a lingering possibility, that we are just watching a movie about a very emotionally disturbed kid. There's certainly like enough evidence to help establish that.
Which, if think about this, this just popped into my head. If you made this movie now, you could do the whole thing about the sick kid.
Right. And that's
right.
Yeah. And that's where this, like, the ideas are like multitudes as far as this movie goes, because this movie, like we said, it sort of works as like a bit of that, like John Hughes, we're watching the life of a kid kind of toughly struggle through high school. There's a ton of like the level I think it worked best for me on, which is kind of weird considering the nature of the movie, is a commentary on like 80s suburban kind of conservative culture, because that's what Donnie's steeped in, his It's right on the cusp of like the Dukakis, the 1988 Dukakis and Bush election, and and it's like it's just the most like vanilla people in the world. There's this one like super conservative religious teacher at school who has the whole scene where she's trying to lump everything into fear and love and how you're either operating in one or the other, which is like a tenet that I do believe in sometimes, but like having Donnie up there just arguing with her about how no, you can't do that. You can't just.
And so there's already some beautiful things that I think came out of the pen of the person who wrote this. I want to say real quick though that Ferris Bueller, the 80s stuff I was mentioning, you talked about a portrait of 80s middle class. It also hit me in that Alex Cox Repo Man, sort of almost like a hyper comment at times, especially the stuffy teacher who's found the motivational speaker to drive her and
yeah. See, had this movie actually been made in 1988, I feel like it would have been frenetic, like very, very campy and frenetic, and maintained like that level of commentary. But here it gets delivered in a much smarter, different package, because as it rolls along, we get introduced to other elements. He has a teacher at school who's a physicist and knows a lot about time travel and the universe. There's a local legend, Roberta Sparrow, who has written a book, The Philosophy of Time Travel. There's all these different aspects that slowly get introduced that engage Donnie in a way which lets him know there's more going on here than just I am sick and I need to keep taking my pills and go to my doctor.
Yeah. Speaking of the stuffy religious teacher who has the motivational speaker, filling her sails. That's played by Patrick Swayze, by the way. But there is a student named Sarita who gets rudely told to go back to China by some bullies, and I think the humor there is I don't think she's really from China. Really, that's just that racist kind of bullshit. But there's an example in this fear and love thing where it says Ling Ling finds a wallet, but removes the cash, but returns the wallet. And this is Donnie Darko has to describe where this is on a fear or love spectrum. And the girl who's being accused of being too Chinese or whatever did the example before him. And it sort of ties together. And then, of course, later in the movie, Donnie Darko finds Patrick Swayze's wallet. And his point in the example in the classroom is, what does fear and love have to do with any of this shit? And him finding the wallet doesn't have to do with any of that shit either. And I loved how, so to continue to set up the world, that 6-foot bunny rabbit gives guidance to Donnie Darko. And Donnie Darko's first move is to hack the water main at the high school with an axe, and then drive an axe so deeply into the mongrel, which is their mascot, which is a bulldog holding a spiked club, which is completely like surreal and messed up in its own self. But they've driven it so deeply into its skull that like no one can really understand like what kind of human would be able to do that, which could go into the superhero theory,
right? Which
about Donnie Darko
starts to unfold, and it might be an appropriate time to talk a little bit about how there are two very different versions of this movie, and neither of them are bad to see. There is a theatric cut, and then there is a director's cut. Richard Kelly wrote and directed this movie, and it was kind of his out of the gate flick. Like he just kind of struck fire. The theatric cut is a good movie, but it's missing segments that you would probably have to research in and of itself. If you watch it from beginning to end, you might scratch your head a bit, but you'd still be left with, I believe, a very satisfied feeling. That was my experience with it, is that it ended and I was like, wow. In fact, I remember watching this movie with my mother because this was one of those movies that when it came out, I saw it and I felt like it was my duty to then show it to everybody. I remember going back east and visiting my parents, watching this movie with my mother, my brother walking in for the last 10 minutes of the movie and looking at me after and going like, why didn't you call me? Because he felt it was so much of a cool punch, even in just the little he saw, that he was just like, why didn't you tell me you were watching something so good? So you'd have a great experience, but the director's cut actually expands upon the philosophy and the mythology of everything that Donnie Darko, including excerpts from this fictional book, The Philosophy of Time Travel, that this fictional character in the movie, Roberta Sparrow, has written. And those really do provide not so much spoon-fed, but you get a really good sense of what's going on, what all these different things mean, who Donnie is, why he can do things like perhaps drive an axe into a, very, very beloved statue.
A bronze. Yeah. And so some of these terms, because remember, folks, we are in a time travel suite. We aren't just watching this for the bunny costume. Our primary universe, tangent universe, living receiver, who Donnie Darko is, and there's even manipulated dead and the manipulated living.
Now, interesting.
And then all of a sudden, you've got a project that you happen to be watching through the experience of a kid who's on medication and probably bipolar or schizoaffective or something, or not.
What's great is that we get to, with the director's cut, we get to discover that stuff as Donnie is. So we get the pieces as he does. So when he discovers what the living receiver is, we discover it at the same time. And we both us and Donnie get clued into, well, maybe that's what's going on here.
So I was not able to rent the director's cut. So at what point in the movie does Donnie have agency? When does he realize he's correcting two worlds, if you will? Because it's not really detectable from the cut I saw.
No. And I'd agree with that. I mean, I would say that he doesn't have a full realization until the climax of the movie, where is when he realizes not only what he, and we'll get to that. I mean, the world now being constructed, we get to kind of just see Donnie play out, and we get a lot of really, really satisfying moments in there, stuff that reminds you of, you want to see the holier than thou Patrick Swayze get made a fool of in front of the class by Donnie Darko. You want to see those heroic moments. While at the same time, it's not great. It's kind of cheesy too. So there's this stuff that happens that's just if that were the only thing that were happening, it might suck a little. But he, a lot of the stuff that Frank, this bunny, directs him to do is destructive. But it's it's okay, because it's okay, he floods the school. Yeah, that's the school that just fired the teacher who wanted to get him to do nothing more than learn. And that's the school that, and that's the house of the,
The school flooding gets him put up with his girlfriend, Gretchen. So without being instructed to cut the main, he wouldn't have left his bus stop and ended up walking into Gretchen, who's being pestered by the two thugs in the movie.
Right. And so with each of these moves, it gets to be made clearer and clearer that Donnie's being led by Frank to an ultimate goal here. I mean, Frank tells him it's 28 days and then the world is going to end. It's a little ambiguous what they mean by the world. You could certainly interpret that as just your world will end. These are the things that will happen. And we do, as the 28 days approaches, we start to see that there's going to be some pretty real world consequences that do end up happening as a result of that. But I want to talk a little bit about just some of the like the more sparkle motion, the things in this movie. The one thing that I really, really forgot about this movie was how damn funny it is.
Yes.
And because it's hysterical. There's stuff in it that not only is relatable to as somebody who's gone through that level of adolescence. Um, Seth Rogen makes his movie debut in this film, and he's got like I think one or two lines in the entire movie. But the first time we see him, he's at a bus stop with Gretchen, and he just looks at her and goes, he's one of the bullies, and he goes, looks at her and goes, "I like your boobs," and it's just the grossest, the grossest, most misogynistic delivery possible. Um, and there's so much great stuff in the characters in this movie. Donnie Darko's sister is played by his Jake Gyllenhaal's actual sister Maggie, and she's great, you know, like that you believe their relationship and you believe the relationship he's got with his little sister. I totally believe the aloofness that Donnie has amongst his father, and the kind of like heartfelt relationship he's got with his mother, and how she there's like this baby boomer just trying to relate to their kids who are on the cusp of like this mass medication thing that's rolling out. Like there's so much good stuff separate from this movie being about multiple universes and time travel. Like it's just cool.
Yeah. Which reminds me, George, who are we?
You know,
I mean, because we're so many things besides time travelers.
who's Donnie Darko? Isn't that the quest that he was on? Basically, Donnie could have seen himself as banal democratic Donnie sees future, right?
Future.
Futur,
Future.
which is what they say in France.
Yeah. Or is it bipolar Donnie Darko Superman fuck ass?
Superman fuck ass?
Superman fuck ass.
Is that what he was calling himself?
Which is a line from one of those scenes that you were kind of talking about where the whole family's together and he calls his sister a fuck ass, and it's just kind of a silly curse word, right? And the middle school sister at the end of the conversation says, "What's a fuck ass?" And that reminds me of like, I don't know, even the older sister relationship, Ferris Bueller's older sister, or maybe some scenes in Close Encounters with little kids. And I don't know, like the magic was there. There's almost a point when they do like an ET bike ride at the end.
Well, I mean, I loved the fact that like the climax of this movie has two teenagers on their bikes,
Yeah.
like pedaling hardcore to someone else's house. It gave me like this, like Airborne, that 80s BMX movie vibe and everything. It's like, we got to go get the bad guys. Let's go. And him and Gretchen get on their bikes and hoof it out.
There's another. Go.
Those relationships are like they're so intact that in the end, and we'll talk about it I think in a little bit, but the last scene in this movie, when they're just faces that sting, you know, like when what happens, the look on his father's face and the demeanor of his sister, there's just like, oh yeah, I feel that because like of how we've seen them interact, and it's not artificial. It's not like lines that are being delivered that are like, hey, I love you, sis, hey, I love you, bro. It just comes across in this sort of genuine thing. And then that's one of the things that's really cool about this movie is how kind of how genuine it feels. It feels like this dude is dealing with big stuff, and he's dealing with it the best he can, and he's telling his shrink about it, and he's telling his parents about it, and kind of just like being a 16-year-old kid, you're really left with this sort of like, yeah, the whole friggin' world is on my shoulders. Like that's just what this is. And it culminates, Kevin.
Cumulates.
It accumulates.
Mhm.
There are clouds.
I knew that's what you were going for.
There's an accumulousness of it that in a very appropriate way. Some of the multiple universe stuff sort of reminded me of Dark, having some hindsight now. Um, and I'm sorry, what were you gonna say before I ranted for like 15 minutes?
I was gonna say I love your rants.
Ah,
So there was a scene where Gretchen and Donnie are walking, and they're maybe about to have their first kiss, and he's like, we've been going out for 2 weeks, and he gathers himself, and she says, well, and he goes, what, you want it to be special? They were just talking about special moments, and she says, well, yeah. And there's a creep in a red tracksuit looking at us right now. And they're standing at the edge of a golf course, and some dude's like puffing a cigarette. They'll show that guy later, just kind of in the midst of like a kind of street kind of scene that needs to happen by while the action happens. And it's, I don't know, but just more of those things that get the hooks in me as we get to move on to this story.
when as we move on, we start to see some like actual hardcore science fiction elements. I mean, we basically we get given through Donnie's perception this idea that he is actually capable of perceiving timelines in this universe. I like the way that it's showcased. I like that it looks. I mean, to me, it reminded me of the water creature from the abyss. Just coming out of a person's chest and showing their path. Donnie is capable of seeing all these things. It takes very simple shapes at first. It looks like his dad going to the fridge to get a beer and then coming back, and this snake following them both front and back. And these things start to happen and what I thought was really cool about it was the way that it's not jarring at all. Like, it's not like, whoa, where the fuck did that come from? It's just sort of like it kind of lines up with the buildup. He's got more and more interactions with Frank. There's more and more weird things happening. And then all of a sudden he starts to become a little bit more aware of his abilities in this, shall we say, they call it tangent universe. Now, the tangent universe is separate from the real, the what is the other term for the universe?
Primary.
The primary universe. So it seems like we're starting out in this tangent universe.
Well, and so when he's auras or whatever he can see, and in the regular cut of the movie, they do show a page in the book where there's a graphic of the aura, like ejecting from the center of the body, and sure enough, that's what he sees.
Yeah.
But because he's on medication and the lines are blurred, it isn't really like, whoa, what are those? You're like, this may be really happening or not.
Right.
And of course, to cast doubt on that is his little mirror aura thing leads him up the stairs to a gun in his parents' bedroom, which of course is fitting nicely into what we're watching the psychiatrist build up, that maybe Donnie is going to hurt people. We already know he's done arson. He's chopped up the main of the school.
We even get in Drew Barrymore's English class, this is something I caught this time around. She's reading a short story in which the entire point of the story is destruction. And Donnie's into it. Like, he's into the idea that destruction is creation, and that they just, this group of kids, they just want to change the world in this short story. And that's the only way that they can change the world, is by destroying stuff. So, I mean, we get even a little bit more of we get a twofold theory there, in that, okay, maybe Donnie is simply creating by destroying, but he also references that they saw creation, they saw destruction as creation, so that through destroying, I create, which again lends itself to what happens towards the end of this movie. By destroying a very particular thing, I am able to create. I'm able to save, it's a cool little tack on,
Well, and I don't know what it was, but one of the first scenes when Donnie comes home from when we meet him, where he's woken up on the pavement, on their little refrigerator, there is a whiteboard, and on it, written in mom handwriting, says, "Where is Donnie?" Almost like it can be kind of openly talked about, the fact that he like disappears. And it made me immediately start to be like, they show the mom later reading, and I was like, what book's she reading? She reads it. The kids are reading Graham Greene's The Destructors. I couldn't read what was on the dad's book. Dad's reading in bed at one night. There is a thing written on the classroom chalkboard that Drew Barrymore has written, and I froze the screen and took a picture of it, and it said, it says, "One moment the house had stood there with such quiet dignity between the bomb site, like a man in a top hat, and then bang, crash, there wasn't anything left, not anything." But regardless, there's already been a bang and a crash with that jet engine, but it just had me being like, what are the clues?
Yeah, and totally.
What are the clues? Like, even looking at the clock, what time is it on the clock?
Yeah.
That was fun.
There, which is cool, which is just another way of like kind of keeping you engaged, but also it just lends it's just smart. It's just a smart way of, it's no different than, you establish these relationships by showing them people interact with each other, and don't tell us how they feel, just show us how they feel. You can tell Donnie's mother loves the hell out of Donnie and doesn't know what the hell's going on with him and is scared. You can tell that Donnie's dad loves the hell out of him, but doesn't really care to try and figure out what's wrong with him.
Mm-hmm.
There's just, you can tell that stuff through the interactions of the characters, and it's really, really good, heartfelt stuff. And then, as this movie rolls along, we get those clues, those little clues, to me, lend itself to, again, the idea that Donnie is being crafted toward an outcome. Frank is telling him straight up these things to do. As the fictional book in the movie presents itself, Donnie has a role to play in saving the world. Now, as we get towards the end, certain things come into focus. The people who you want punished end up getting punished. We find out that Patrick Swayze is a secret pedophile, and he gets arrested for that. And this is after Donnie has made a fool out of him in front of the whole school.
Which, unlike Ling Ling, who returned the wallet but kept the money, Donnie finds the wallet, gets his address, and burns his house down later. And that then has the dance instructor for the dance troupe stay home and spearhead the "he's not a child pornographer" movement, which puts Donnie's mom on a plane with Donnie's little sister, who's in Sparkle Motion, the group of dancers, which lets Donnie and his older sister have the Halloween party at their house.
So all pieces being moved around the board, right? Like essentially all things that, and that's a cool thing that keeps happening is all things seem to lead right into something else. And this leads to, this party at Donnie's house. And we get to find out who this universe's version of Frank is. We get a mention of Frank as far as like a real world. And now Frank to me is still a bit of an oddity. I always wondered what his agenda was, and what exactly the catalyst of his creation was. I don't feel like we get that. I don't feel like we do get the and it's sort of one of the only things that really detracts me from the film at all. One would be that you kind of need to seek out the director's cut. Like I said, you'll enjoy it, but if you want the full experience, and another one would be like, I feel like we didn't get a full picture of Frank's role in this entire thing. Like he guides Tawny towards an eventual outcome to avoid the end of the world. The end of the world to me, meaning, I mean, because essentially what ends up happening as we go forward is that through a series of events, Donnie and Gretchen end up at Roberta Sparrow's house. The dickhead bullies are there, trying to steal some shit. Gretchen ends up getting in a kind of one of those scenes that's like jarringly brutal. She ends up getting run over by a Camaro. And it might not have been a Camaro. In my head, it's a Camaro. But Camaro driven by Frank, who is Donnie's sister's boyfriend in a bunny costume that he made specifically for Halloween. And that's like the reveal that Frank is actually a very real world person who has just like accidentally but horribly run over and killed Donnie's girlfriend Gretchen. This leads to a couple other deaths then, because Donnie, in a complete anger, pulls out the gun he has taken from his parents and shoots Frank in the eye, killing him.
Yep.
That is a callback to an earlier scene in which, during one of his hallucinations, Donnie is stabbing a mirror which contains Frank's reflection in the eye, and we see the eye starts glowing. So that eye of Frank comes back a few times throughout the movie in some pretty satisfying ways. And so this is now, as I saw it, like this is the end of Donnie's world, slowly but surely. We are seeing this happen. And then a vortex starts to open in the clouds,
Yep.
And as that vortex is opening, Donnie is recounting everything that he has experienced. I feel like I could say you get a moment where Donnie has kind of looked back and seen the things he's done, his mistakes, what he needs
Plays
to
all in reverse, mind
Yep.
you.
And also this vortex is opening up right near the airplane containing his mother and sister, and we get to see where this whole thing began, essentially, as the turbulence kicks in on this airplane, and boom, one of the turbines off this plane is pulled, and we see it funneling down towards some unknown destination. Looks like it's goes into a little bit of a wormhole there. Donnie makes the decision, hops in the car with the body of his dead girlfriend, drives into the vortex. Everything shoots into reverse, and we are left with Donnie Darko in his bed 28 days earlier, where he was not 28 days earlier, because 28 days earlier, Frank had woken him up and gotten him out of his bed.
And that's so that tangent world started when Frank woke him up.
Yeah.
And the primary world we never really watched.
Yeah. Because
So
the primary world is about to come crashing through the roof.
A bubble. Yeah.
And then that is how Donnie saves the world.
Well, but so that this is where I enjoyed the movie and all, but what did he save? So like
my
interpretation. What's that?
Go ahead, keep going.
I was gonna say the engine lands on him and dies. Okay.
Yeah.
So in the real world, he's dead. The girl Gretchen rides past the house and says, "Who's that?" And a little neighbor kid says, "It's some kid, Donnie Darko. Did you know him?" And she says, "No," because we know they've never really met.
Well, before that, though, we are treated to, as Donnie dies, we see all the characters. It's actually a pretty it's a well done moment in the film. We see all the characters that he has touched awaken in the middle of the night, at the realization that something has just happened. And some
Right.
of them handle it rather differently. We see Patrick Swayze in his bed crying. We see Frank, who reaches up and touches the eye that Donnie has
Yep.
shot. So my interpretation was that on some level, these people might not recall, but are affected by what happened.
Think about the ending of Dark.
Exactly.
And I'm wondering, probably the people who wrote Dark have seen this movie because of its status, but
Right.
And now that I think about it, what I really liked about Donnie Darko was there are, I think, 4 music videos in it. Basically, there's a Tears for Fears moment with some good slow motion stuff going on, and just the kind of the school going by. There's a Love Will Tear Us Apart thing. There's the end song, which everyone knows. And then earlier in the movie, I think there's another song that and it almost made me think, like, did this dude direct music videos before? And in Dark, even had 5 minutes before the ending of every Dark episode, you'd go into a song with a montage thing, right? It would just sort of give some expose with some dark ass weird
Right.
song.
I feel like that is almost like a direct, perhaps even like an homage that Dark was pulling. Is just like, you know what? Every couple episodes, I'm going to end with a song we all know on some level, and important
Just as
stuff's gonna
long.
happen during it.
You know what song I can't stand, man? I hate Over the Rainbow with a Ukulele, man.
Oh man,
I want to.
It was everywhere. That's why.
Well,
How many people was that their first fucking dance to in the last?
their first. Well, that's I don't. It's
You know what? I'm gonna be so original, man. We're gonna do Over the Rainbow, but with the ukulele.
But it's like Southwest Airlines' way of telling me there's hope or something. It's like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I hate that shit. Or it's like graduation slideshow pictures.
I'm gonna do this so different, man. It's gonna be a song, but wait for it, ukulele. All right. That's like what fucking all right. Like acapella, I get sometimes. Like I'm like, okay, that's great. But it's like, oh wow, what is it? Oh, we got rid of those pesky instruments. Great. Because I love shit that's not as good as other stuff.
Yeah, no.
Oh yeah, here's Ants Marching by Dave Matthews Band, but acapella. All right. Doop,
lame.
Doop, doop, doop. And it's just like, come on, man.
Lame.
But this fucking so yeah, I took it as like each of these people was profoundly affected by Donnie Darko, even though like there's a couple people who never met him in that group.
Well, without Donnie Darko going into the Tangent universe, would they have lived out what had happened in the Tangent universe?
No.
What was so wrong with the world that it needed fixing?
Well, I mean, maybe it wasn't even that he saved the world so much as that the prophecy came true that in 28 days, the world will end. So what that means is in 28 days, either you're going to watch your girlfriend, you're going to kill somebody, and your mom and your sister are going to die, or the world will end. Your world, you will die. Like, so maybe it's not so much like, okay, well, he saved the world as it is, no, the world ended. Like, that's what happened. Your job was to end the world.
And that's where, like, it didn't really make me think of that, because I'm like, so you're going to try and tell me that the world means you?
Right.
One of you ends, and so we're all worlds, man? Is that what you're trying to say, bro? Like,
so
and that's
trippy.
And I didn't really need to think about it. Plus, he was on a hill he drove up the hill with the body and watched the kind of funnel crowd of the vortex over in the valley. And I don't really know like how he had contact. I didn't really know what happened there.
This is a big, like, I got into a bit of like, without getting in, like, so, because if it's not multiple universes, then I get into like well, wait a minute, how did that? Because if Donnie's not in this world, then that means that the mom is not going to get on that plane, and then the engine won't be pulled off. So how is the engine there? Because you still got an engine from a plane that doesn't exist. You know?
Yeah.
So we're back into a couple podcasts ago where I convinced you that a movie sucked. and, but no, and
This
I agree
one
with
doesn't suck.
Like, it doesn't suck at all, actually. But I agree with you in that, like, the geography was handled a little sloppy. I almost felt like, how the hell did he drive into a vortex where it was up there and he's with the girl? And the decision making that he came to was, I felt like, a little mismanaged. You know, like he wasn't. They could have had like something else there where he just decided, okay, this is what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna strap in the body of my dead girlfriend in Frank's, who I just murdered's car. We're gonna drive into those clouds.
Well, I didn't see him driving the clouds. That's what I'm saying. He
No,
just
he didn't
drove
drive
up
the
the
clouds.
hill.
He just kind of took off, and then that was it.
And but he ended up driving out of the town up to the hill, like where maybe he started. Anyhow, I think that it perhaps doesn't matter. Like, I don't need him to be in the vortex to have the vortex work, but it made me think, like, aren't you going to put him in the vortex? I mean, the victories
Movie sucked, Kevin.
horrible.
He's not in the.
Well, I'm feeling really
vortex.
I'm feeling uneducated without being able to see the director's cut. I feel like I could win this podcast, George, if I had seen it. I'm wondering. I'm like, you've seen it. How come you're not winning the podcast?
I'm destroying this podcast.
Yes, you are. That's what I'm saying.
Horrible way. That's what is winning. Do you not mean losing by winning? Is this one of those people things?
In the primary universe, that's what I mean. But in the tangent universe, that's not what I mean.
Understandable. Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah. I mean, tangible, like tangent universe, Kevin is a dickhead.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
You know. Tangent universe, George has a goatee.
So I think, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. So that's where I'm like, this movie is a cool time travel movie. That's why it's here in the suite. And it has to have it in order for this movie to be cool. But it doesn't necessarily, whereas, I understand why Dark did what it did.
Right. And
I understand why Looper did what it did.
I think it's weird, man, because it's like the fear and love thing is actually kind of what happens in this movie. Like he does sort of, like, a lot of him moving is completely out of fear and reaction. And what he does at the end is kind of out of love. Like, what he does at the end is sort of, okay, well, I'm gonna sacrifice myself. I know that being in this bed means I'm gonna die.
How do you know that? I don't know that. How does he know that?
Because what do you mean? How does he know that? He knows that being in that bed at the end of the movie means he's gonna die.
I'm not sure I know why.
Because there's a jet engine about to come through the.
But there's 3 jet engines.
Because there's what?
There's 3 jet engines. So in the tangent universe, his mom and his daughter and his sister are on a plane, and they lose an engine. That's the second engine we see that gets lost. First one was the one that showed up at the beginning. And I think that third one, obviously it's torn off the plane that the mom's in.
They're all the same jet engine.
I don't know. It's called an artifact.
Hold on. No. I'm now alarmed that we've been talking for an hour and you don't know that they're the same jet engine.
I totally understand it, but there's a primary universe jet engine and a tangent universe jet engine. That's 2.
The tangent universe is created. That's the artifact. That is the impetus of this universe. Is impetus a word?
It's yes.
All right.
Some people call it impetus. But I watched the movie, he's on the hill with the dead body,
Yeah.
and then it cuts to him in bed.
Got a name. Her name's Gretchen.
Well, so, I mean, obviously, I get it that he knows he's supposed to be in bed, but I don't see how.
You don't
Like,
think
I don't
that
think it's a sacrifice. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's
absolutely. I think he had control over where he was going to go. Knew he was going to go back to 28 days earlier. Knew he was going to end up in that bed, and knew. I think that's why he was laughing. He was laughing because there was satisfaction at the idea that none of the stuff that just happened was going to happen, because he was now going
relief.
to
Well,
relief.
but so that's so like if he sacrifices, yay. But we've only seen him. Like, do you think it's like a mercy killing? Like the life of a kid who isn't time traveling, who's on medication and misunderstood and lost and hearing shit or whatever, that's
Well,
a horrible way to be.
If I'm forced to speculate, I want to say that like this universe is created, and then it needs a receiver. It needs somebody to get things right again. Like that, okay, this is not supposed to happen. We are not supposed to have a split in our universes. Okay? This happened and again, this is the one big like thing about this movie is we don't get that initial how the hell did the universes get split. In Dark, we get the whole it was a tragedy, and out of that tragedy, universe is split. We don't get that with this, so I feel like Donnie's job was to be guided by this universal entity to like the whole, making the universe whole again.
So was he a pawn then, or was he the superhero? He says, maybe I am a superhero.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another thing that's up for interpretation. Like, he could have continued forward in this universe, just being in a probably consistently degrading, shitty universe. Like, I think
jail. No, he would have been in jail for shooting.
Would have been in jail for murdering a guy. Yeah. But I mean, I think that this universe was going to get like more and more crappy because it wasn't supposed to be, and there's some evidence for that in the passages in the director's cut where they talk about like the, oh, damn it. I can't remember now. We got to watch the director's cut.
Well, Amazon won't let me rent it.
That's ridiculous.
By the way, Amazon, proud partner of Busy Dads Do Sci-Fi.
Yeah, we're talking to Mr. B right now? Bezos?
Guy
owes me $20.
He can't pull off being a good guy. Like, how come from people who care, I hear people going, we can't like order at Amazon anymore because he's a dick. How'd that happen? Are we in Tangent Universe? I mean, if you got that much money, shouldn't you be?
He looks remarkably like Lex Luthor. He does.
Fuck these idiots.
Hey, Bezos, where are my shelves?
Bezos.
Ordered shelves 2 weeks ago. Where the fuck are they?
It turns out, if you want something on Amazon, like a New Balance sneaker, New Balance has a website, and you can order it from them.
Do you have any idea how long that's going to take?
Yeah.
28 days?
Yep.
And then what? It's going to fall through the roof of some
28 days. It gets delivered in a jet engine that drops through your ceiling. Here's your shoe. You call these shoes? This looks like the carcass of a duck that got sucked into the.
Merry Christmas. Oh my gosh, what's for Christmas? The presidency of George Bush. Here you go. 1988. Isn't there a joke in the beginning where the daughter says she's voting for Dukakis? Is that
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. Good family banter at the dinner table there.
Really good family banter at the dinner table. Did we do this? Did we wrap this baby up? Is that a
maybe? I mean, I think there's one more. Who are we? It might say it all.
That's basically just it's who we've always been.
What?
Say it. Books, dudes, dancers, Swayze, fire.
Books, dudes, dancers, Swayze, fire.
Swayze, fire.
Yep.
kind of fire that'll kill you
Do you remember?
because he's dead.
Do you remember when Gary Busey in Black Sheep says, "I'm going to go to your mama's house and light a small fire in her panties"?
You know what? I watched Point Break a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
and Gary Busey's in Point Break, and I was watching it, and it's so hard for me to picture him as anything but like an absolute lunatic now. Like even then, early like late 80s, I'm like, I bet he was fucking crazy on that set. Like I bet he was just always lit out of his mind and completely
Just like pantsing people and stuff.
This is fully like I mean worse, like punch to the stomach, like he'd come up
Worse
to you,
than that. Yeah.
hey, I hear you're Keanu, and he'd grab him by the shoulders and headbutt him.
Yeah. That's how we act. Just
That's
punch
how
you in
we
the gut.
act
Now
now.
say your lines.
Welcome to Busey Town, you dumb son of a bitch.
What if Point Break is Jimmy Cunningham, Swayze's character in Donnie Darko? What if Point Break is his tangent universe?
So he would have survived the great storm, the big storm, and that he surfed into at the end of Point Break, refashioned himself as a motivational speaker with a bit of a Christ bend, and
Yep.
it makes
I think Point Break's a time travel movie.
that makes perfect sense.
We should go. Let's vote. Do we want to do a bonus hour on Point Break?
Bonus hour on Point Break. Let's do it.
2
Let's
votes. Group conscience.
go. Let's do it, Utah.
All right. Wow.
All right. Point one. Each one of those presidents was chosen very specifically for each of those characters.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
No,
We can't do this, man.
we're right. Let's pull the ripcord.
Point
Parachute.
2.
Parachute out of
ripcord.
here. All right. Don't hand me that shoot.
That was the name of Swayze's child pornography dungeon in Donnie Darko.
Ripcord.
The ripcord.
Pull the ripcord. Oh boy. Well, good note to end it on, Kevin.
Yeah. Well, who says we're over? Maybe we're just beginning.
We're gonna beat this Gary Busey to death, are we?
Well, do you hear a jet maybe flying over your house?
Holy shit, I actually do. But I live near Burbank Airport, so
probably not artifact number 3.
there's only one artifact, Kevin.
Hey, you know what? You and your director's cut can shove it.
You just made like a snooty head shake.
I did. I
Your
did, man.
director's cut.
Yeah.
Your monocle and your top hat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Well played.
no monocle.
Just the top hat.
So what do we do now, George? What
Just
happens now?
Just the tip.
Do we wait? Hold on. Should we end this podcast with 3 minutes of meditation?
Let's do a solid 20.
20.
All right.
Okay, listener, if you'll just sit with your shoulders up a little bit in a comfortable seated position or laying down,
Mm-hmm.
and roll your neck a couple times.
Give it a good like twist. Oh, little crack in there. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Tin can.
And then imagine Patrick Swayze talking to you about the ocean.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
just the waves.
sweetheart.
And can you keep this up for 20 minutes now, George? George is going to sing.
I'll tell you what. I promise we will be back in 20 minutes.
Yeah. So guys, it's kind of like a secret track on a record. So listener, we'll see you in 20 minutes, listener.
Paul is dead. Nice.